Iconographers take photos of their work. They take photos of other people's work, and they take photos of icons in galleries and in churches. And these days we have excellent cameras in our phones and our tablets, and we can take photos, well, wherever we go. When iconographers sell their icons, they like to keep a photo of their work, for they may never see that icon again. So, there are just a couple of reasons why this video is about taking photos of icons. And I'll start by talking about what Aidan Hart says about icon photography. I'll give some ideas about using the basic equipment that most of us have for taking photos of icons. And if you haven't fallen asleep by then, you can go on and see me show how I take photos of icons today. I'm Peter Blackwood, and this little chat has been prepared for the Uniting Church Icon Schools. And if you are from beyond that community and are listening in, you are very welcome. So, here goes. Aidan Hart's monumental book, Techniques of Icon and Wall Painting, concludes with a chapter on photography. And he starts by giving reasons for taking photos of our work, and includes the wise advice that if you're accepting commissions, it's good to have quality photos of our work to give accurate impressions of what we do. Aidan then talks about equipment and helps readers deciding what gear to start with. He says that basic digital cameras these days are very good, but emphasises the need for tripod, for good lighting. He writes about lenses and tripod booms. He writes about studio lights. He recommends using a light tent. He has an excellent diagram for placing lights and the camera, getting everything squared up to eliminate distortions. He alerts us to the issues of photographing gold. It's like photographing a mirror. The photographer comes in shot. Aidan concludes with a short section on software that helps adjust features of the image, like exposure and contrast and saturation and getting the lines straight and skewed images squaring up. It's all excellent stuff. A bit daunting, but for those photo and computer savvy people, it's a good read. Now, don't give up just because you don't have a DSLR camera with a 50mm macro lens and 2 studio lights and a fully adjustable tripod and a light tent. Doesn't mean you cannot take half-decent photos of your icons. Smartphones and tablets have excellent cameras. They autofocus, they auto-expose, and they auto-shutter speed. Left to their own devices, they'll soon auto-get up and take the photo for you, but until they learn that trick, we have to pick them up and aim them. And here are some tricks to consider. Choose soft light. Sunlight is too harsh and casts sharp shadows. The bride wants a sunny day, but her photographer wants a cloudy day. Much better photos on a cloudy day. Have the light come from the side, about 45 degrees, so you're not casting your own shadow on the icon. Here I've got a top light as well from the ceiling. Hold the camera so that the lens is in line with the center point and held at 90 degrees to the icon. And remember that the camera lens is not in the middle of your tablet. It is right up in a corner. And you can work out how to get it straight by looking at the sides of your screen and the edge of your icon and getting them lined up, so that if you're off to one side, you can see that your lines are not parallel. Or if you're too high, you can see that the side lines are not parallel. Don't worry about having some background in the photo. You can crop that later, but the cropping will be easier if the icon is straight and not skewed. One of the things to notice with this halo with the gold, see how the colours change. In fact, you can see my hand reflected there. That's one of the things that Aidan Hart warns us about. So finding a spot or getting an angle that keeps it pretty much all the same is going to be less distracting. But it gets tricky when you're wanting to keep your edges straight and not skewed. Other ideas is that you can think of taking the photo with the icon on the floor with a window beside it, or a table with a side window. So you're taking your photo from above. Either way, hold the camera really steady, especially when you release the shutter. Any movement is a killer. If you can mount your device on a tripod or a stand of any kind, that will help prevent movement. Consider using the delay capability on your camera. That way your hand is not pressing the button when the photo is taken, and that reduces the possibility of movement and makes the image sharper, and that's a good thing. Your device may well have some editing capacity, at least for cropping the image. You may also be able to change the exposure a bit, contrast, the saturation, that is the intensity of the colour, to help get the photo looking much like the original icon as possible. Remember, the cameras lie in the colour department and usually need someone to knock some honesty into them. Remember, cameras are always truthful in the focus and blurring department, and no amount of editing can fix the photo of an out of focus or shaky camera. One last point: think of taking the photo of your icon before varnishing. It lessens the possibility of getting glare from any shine in the varnish. Same with glass, big problem, and we'll see how the problem of glass affects our gallery photography. Taking photos in galleries can have the same glass glare problem as we have with photographing varnished icons or icons with gilding on them. Again, get your camera as square onto the middle of the icon on the wall as you can. You can't do much about the light, and they're very often protected behind perspex. Move to eliminate the glare as much as possible. You may need to sacrifice the skewed effect, but good editing software can fix this. Two examples. In the Russian gallery in St. Petersburg, I came upon the angel with the golden hair, one of the most famous icons of all time. It hangs in the gallery beside a window, and try as I might, I could not get rid of the glare. What is more, try as I might, I could not get over the fact that it was a warm, humid evening and the window was open beside this priceless icon. Example 2 was in the Tretyakov Gallery in Moscow, in front of Rublev's Trinity, perhaps the most famous of all icons. It is protected by perspex, and the side light reflects off it. But you can get really close to the icon, but there's this annoying glare. But by moving slightly to one side, the glare was eliminated. And later, I was able to correct the problem in editing in a program called Lightroom. So, line up your icon, move your camera so it's upright, hold it as steady as you can, and one good way, if you've got a camera such as this, hold onto the lens and brace everything against yourself, and that will keep things much more steady. And line up the center of it, of your lens, with the center of the icon. So there are just a few tips. One of the things about galleries around the world today is they've given up trying to stop people taking photos. It just happens all the time. So there are very few galleries that don't allow photography. Good thing. Except for those who want to take selfies. Oh. Have I offended anyone? Now, are you still with me? Here is how I photograph icons. I have a DSLR camera with a reasonable lens, and it's got a remote shutter button. I have a tripod, and I have a studio light. I use one studio light rather than the two that Aidan Hart recommends. I do have two, but I use the one because most of my icons have a kivatos, and if you're lighting from both sides, you don't get that nice little shadow in the kivatos, which I like. Now, I also have this light tent, and it has a backdrop. This is a black backdrop. I've got a choice of white and burgundy and blue and black. I like the black. It's very dull, and in the light box it's just beautiful. Now, when we line up, I use the screen on the camera, which takes the mirror out of the way. And this needs to be moved a little to get that right. It's not quite quite straight. Okay, now my exposures and things like that, I need to move the ISO way down because it's way too high. Now I have adjusted the camera so that its ISO is 100. It'll give me a much cleaner, clearer shot. It's set for RAW, which gives me much more information than any other kind of setting. I'm pretty happy with the composition. The focus will set automatically, and it will go on. Now I'll change the setting a little so that we get something slightly different to work with, just in case. Good. Now it is ready for processing. Now I've imported the two photos from the camera card, and I'm moving now to develop the first of them. I think it's the best of them, and I'm going to start by cropping it, take out all the edges. One of the things I notice is that down the bottom left hand corner, the material, the black material, left a mark, so I'm just repairing that. Now we'll fix up the contrast, and I want to fix the white balance, and I'm struggling a bit with this to get the colours back to the way the original icon looked. Yeah, that should do. Just fixing the very bright and the very dark, but there's too much yellow, so we take out some of the luminescence. It helps the gold a bit too. You can see some of the contrast in the gold. Now we will export it as a JPEG file, and we find it on our computer. There it is. Good. There. I'm done now. Have a go with whatever camera you have and see if any of what I've said helps. Thanks for watching, and enjoy painting icons and enjoy taking photos of them.